Hello and welcome. It is another episode of Insight, and today we will be looking at public relations and its impact on national development. But then, what is public relations? There are different definitions for public relations, but certain key elements remain consistent, and one of them is that it is the management of information flow from an individual, an organization, or indeed the government and its public or the people. Then, of course, we do know that public relation is a problem-solving initiative. That is, it has problem-solving in orientation. But then, how has it helped in solving some of our national challenges? These and other issues related to public relations is a focus on Insight. I've got Cecil here with me. Cecil will be taking up the media review segment. Cecil, what are we going to be looking at in your segment?
Well, we'll not stop talking about 2019, the build-up to 2019 elections and how prepared we are. So we shall be having the number one man of the Nigerian Union of Journalists here on set with us to talk to us about how prepared the Nigerian journalist is in the coverage of 2019. How free, fair and balanced would it be? These and many more is what we'll be talking about on the media review segment.
It promises to be interesting and fascinating. Up next is the discussion segment. Thanks for staying with us. Public relations has a very long history in Nigeria, of course, starting from the colonial era where the first public relation professional body was evolved and established. It was known then as the Press Club of Nigeria. And in 1963, the Public Relations Association of Nigeria was established. The current body, the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, was established in 1969. And this body became chartered in 1990. Public relation is known to be problem-solving in orientation, and how much so has it helped in helping in solving some of our major challenges in the country is what we did promise you that to be the focus of today's episode of Insight. I've got two gentlemen with me here in the studio to help analyze this issue. Dr. Ike Neliaku is a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. Dr. Neliaku, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Namdi.
Of course, we've also got with us Dr. Tayo Hastrop. He is the chairman, Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, Abuja chapter.
Thank you.
Welcome to the program, Dr.
Thank you for
Hastrop.
inviting me.
All right, gentlemen, I think we should begin from an issue that I consider quite germane, and that is the role of public relations in setting agenda for public discourse. How difficult or increasingly challenging has it become to evolve communication messages, communication campaign messages that promote or engender national harmony? We're in a period where the 2019 electioneering campaign is building momentum. I mean, how challenging has it become, Dr. Neliaku?
Well, we just finished a conference. I would like to start from there with a theme, bridging the trust gap. What has happened in our climb is that people are beginning to doubt whatever any other person says, except there is an existing relationship. So, in a situation where I ask you to kindly walk through this door and get a cup of water for me, the assumption is that there is water behind that door, and I ask you to go get it. And then you walk out of that place and you don't see water. Two things are likely to happen. You may come back to me to say there is no water there, or you may make an additional effort to get water for me to drink, right? Now, what that teaches me or tells me is that my communication with you and water may have had a challenge. Number one, I wasn't sure if there was water where I sent you to go and pick water. Next time I ask you to go and get water for me to drink, the tendency is that you're likely to doubt if indeed I left water somewhere or somebody left water somewhere. This is a challenge facing the civil society. When I say the civil society, the public today. There is a challenge of communication from the context of believability of what I say to the next person and what the next person says to me. Now, as practitioners, we must take our operating environment into consideration. You cannot design a message outside of the environment that you operate in. When you do that, then you are taking a walk onto yourself. You are not communicating. Because in a situation where people are looking up to you to tell them what is going on, the way your message is captured, is conceived, is delivered, the way it is communicated, the medium of communication, the body language of the communication, and then the reception that comes out of that message from those who you are speaking to play a very critical role in communicating. So if we are to put it in the context of Nigeria today, put it in the context of the election that is before us today, our operating environment is that you're dealing with the people that have become very cynical of what their leaders say because of what they have gone through in the past. It didn't start yesterday. It didn't start 2 days ago. It's been a pattern that grew over a period of time and is beginning to reach a climax. Therefore, for a PR communicator whose mandate essentially is strategic communication, which is understand that I have a message to communicate, find out the best way to communicate my message in a manner that it gets the desired result. You invited me to this studio. I came for 2 reasons. Number 1, you invited me. Number 2, I accepted to come. Why? Because there is something that I have at the back of my mind. I didn't come here to do Christmas. I came here to communicate. I have something I want to say to people. So part of my preparation is to find out who are likely to be the receptors of my message, or the receivers of my message, or the audience of my message, or the stakeholders of my message. Who are they likely to be? And within the context of all these listeners, all these viewers, all these stakeholders, what is likely to be the categorization? We're likely to have students there. We're likely to have the youth population. We're likely to have professionals. We're likely to have even traders. We're likely to have lawyers across the country listening to this. So what should be my language? My language must be such that I should be able to communicate to a wider audience and get them to understand what I am saying. If I become too technical, I might be speaking to only PR practitioners who are not likely to be dominant in the audience. So the issue today for communicators is to be strategic, understand the character of your audience, understand your operating environment. That will advise you on the kind of message that you are putting out there, how you put out that message, and then the content that you want every member of the audience to go home with.
Is the system the problem? Because in evolving these communication campaign messages that engender harmony, how difficult is it for us to come up with such messages, considering what Dr. Neleaku has just made references to, that the system is part of the problem?
Thank you very much. Population communication is part of populations, but we have so many aspects in terms of reputation, in terms of integrity, in terms of ethics and other things. But because of our discourse at this time, talking about issue of communication, it's becoming a big problem. I tell you that there are a lot of distortion in terms of what we're communicating. The major issue around communication is from the person sending the message and who is receiving it. Then, what are you receiving? what is the message being sent and what is the other guy at the other hand receiving. But what I see presently, we have a lot of challenges in terms of our communication because we have barriers, in terms of there's religious barrier in communication. We have ethnicity barrier in communication. Presently, we have a political barrier in terms of communication, and we also have a lot of distortion around communication. So what I say every time, to the public and to the audience when you are communicating, is that we should apply effective communication. Communication is there, but is it effective? And communication cannot be effective until when the audience or the person receiving your message is able or are able to dictate what exactly are you saying. So generally, politicians, as you mentioned about the coming election, it is what they want people to hear in terms of the agenda that they're going to tell the public. And also the religious aspect is there, is what they want the audience, the members of the various religions to hear, that they also communicate to them. And generally about ethnicity, people are also selfish. These are points that affect communication. So we should look around communication generally to be sure that we are sending out the right thing, and we're also discussing in details effective communication, what we are saying. Say it clearly, say it without any selfish interest. Say it to make sure that it's beneficial to all, and it's not that you are holding back. Holding back information is another problem in communication, because when you don't have detailed information of what it's baffling and very disturbing. People gives half information. It's not a detailed information, and that is bad communication, because somebody receiving that at the other end will not be able to hack what you are saying, and becomes a very big problem.
Communication is only effective when the recipient, that is the receiver on the other hand, receives this message, understands this message, and there is a feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, that is when communications is. Well, in fact, we're going to stay on this issue just a bit longer, Dr. Neleaku. I beg for you to just indulge me. I'm coming back to you because you threw up the issue of the 2018 AGM of NIPR, where the theme for this year's conference was bridging the gap, the trust gap in governance. It brings us back to the issue of the gap between the public and government, and our inability to evolve strategies or a communication model that helps to send the right messages to the people for them to receive, understand, and better appreciate the value of governance. I mean, how do we bridge the gap so that the public can better appreciate the value of governance? Because these policies are for public good.
Well, I would like to go back a bit. What you saw in the 2018 AGM is actually a well-researched product that we set out to do, but it started in 2016. When he came in as chairman of the FCT chapter, we decided that we must have a new narrative for PR in the FCT and then in the nation. And we said we are going to use our annual conferences as a platform to begin to redefine the understanding of public relations. So in 2016, we said that our theme will be focused on integration, national integration. And that was because at that time, this nation was seriously troubled. That was when the new administration had just come in, trying to settle down, challenge of legitimacy, challenge of many things, And we discovered that people were beginning to beat the drum of war. That was when IPOB was rising up, all manner of challenges. So we thought that as PR practitioners, we should take a step to begin to address the issue of national integration. And we did that. We brought in speakers from within and outside the country, and we discussed from the 6 geopolitical zones Bishop Kuka was there, and a number of other people. We followed this up in 2017, and we talked about rebranding Nigeria, which was a product of the 2016 conference, because people said, yes, we are talking about issues and challenges of integration, but we also have to know that integration is a product of an environment, and then the narrative that goes out to that environment is what makes people to embrace the culture of integration. So how do we rebrand our nation, both for internal communication and external appreciation? Most times we think that rebranding will only have to do with external audience. But you see, charity begins at home. Nigerians are no longer trusting Nigeria. Nigerians are not prepared to die for Nigeria. So when we finished from that, we discovered that at the kernel of the entire issue is the challenge of trust. That's how 2018 theme came about, bridging the trust gap. And a simple narrative. Let me tell you a short story that happened. A man asked his son, who was then about 2 years, he told him to jump from a floor and that he will catch him. And then the young boy, the chap, jumped, and his father could not catch him. And he fell on the ground and injured himself. And he said, but Daddy, you said you were going to catch me, that you were going to hold me. Father didn't realize what he has done to this boy. 5 years after, they were playing, now 7 years. And the father said, I'm going to skip from the top of this stair down to this place. When I do it, I will stand. When you do it, I will catch you. You know what happened? The boy said, no, Dad, I'm going to skip, but I'll catch myself. And the father said, why? He said, Daddy, you told me 2 years. He said, you told me 5 years ago that you were going to catch me if I threw myself from that first floor. And that you didn't catch me. I fell on the ground. What did that teach that man? He lost the trust of his own son. Now, bringing this to where we are today, there is a very big lacuna between the government and the governed, the leader and the led, the manager and the managed, the father and the son, the mother and the daughter. There is a huge gap. And usually we don't know how or when it starts. And even when we know, we assume that it's of no consequence. It will be sorted out. And gradually it becomes a pattern. From a pattern, it becomes a culture. From a culture, it becomes a system. And when it gets to the level of a culture and a system, it becomes more difficult to address the issue. This is where we are today. That somebody cannot easily tell me that he's going to sink a borehole in my community if elected as senator. What normally happens is that I will say, once he gets to Abuja, he will forget that we exist. Therefore, I tend to ask him to give me what is due to me now, because once he is elected, I am not likely to see him again. So when you now come to me and you're preaching to me, Nnamdi, and you're telling me that, you know, it is better for you to have a suspended expectation, just do what is right, then tomorrow, you know, something good will come. I say, but I did that 2 years ago. Nothing good came out of it. I did that 4 years ago. I did that 8 years ago. So you see the level of consistency of failure on the part of the other person that now makes me think I can no longer trust him as a senator, as a member of House of Rep, as a governor, as a chairman, representing me. So when Kabiesi now comes and says, I have a bag of rice for you, I have 10,000 naira to support it, and I have 2 cartons of whatever it is, milk, for you to use to send it home into your tummy, the tendency is that I am likely to listen to him as the real person that has my interest at heart. Whereas the other person may come and make all promises, I am not likely to believe him. And unfortunately, that person may be more genuine than the person who has just given me a bag of rice. But because of the trust challenge, I am likely to take what I am seeing because I am not sure the other person would come back. That is the challenge that we face today. And this is why we felt that it's a very serious matter. And then we made our 2018 AGM to address that issue very squarely. And we had one of the best who really took it on, Mr. Femi Falana, SAN. He was the guest speaker. And I can say very clearly, he dwelt on chapter 2 of the Constitution. And you know the interesting thing? This is the chapter that brings out the responsibilities of government to the governed, as well as the responsibility of the citizen to the nation. But you know the tragedy? It is not justiciable. So any government can make any promise and does not do what that government has promised, and nothing comes out of it. We have no way of questioning him. We cannot take him to court, and the citizen can do whatever he likes. So these are the various issues. So if you cannot in any way penalize me as a governor who swore an oath that I'm going to perform, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do that for you, and it is constitutional, and at the end of the day, I did nothing, you cannot take me on and take me to court and sue me in as much as it is a provision of the Constitution.
Well, that is one matter we might have to take up another time for another episode of the program.
Let me add to this. Let me quickly add to this.
If you want to talk about the AGM and
not
the
AGM,
major
okay.
highlights,
Right.
because I've listened to Dr. Neliaku and some of the issues he's thrown up. I think these are issues we can probably take up on another episode of the program. That we would hardly have time.
Let me just make 2 comments on 2 issues.
Very quickly.
The rebranding that Dr. Neliaku mentioned, that was the topic for the last AGM, is just for us to know that rebranding the people and rebranding the country. You know, what I said at my opening this at that time is that we have very fantastic Nigerians all over the world. And it would be too bad for people to see us as very bad people. And we also start communicating that whenever they hear about he's a Nigerian, they just start casting aspersion that who are these people, let's check them. And I said, no. You know, in all fields, in all fields, we have very outstanding Nigerians within and outside the country. So that's why we discussed that rebranding of Nigeria, that we should not condemn ourselves. You know, we are very great people. And for this year, talking about the trust gap and information, let me commend the Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. He's a member, he's a fellow of Nigerian Public Relations. You know, what he just introduced, the marketplace, the town hall meetings, you know, it's just to be able to communicate and show the people what the government is doing. Because if you don't have information, you might be concluding on false assumption. Do you understand? So